Michael, you've got to move on from the games where you had wonder strikes against you at Barnsley and Brentford, and then, of course, the very cruel decision in the last few minutes on Wednesday, when maybe if fans had been in the stadium, that might not have been given. But you now look forward to a game against a Wycombe side really fighting for their lives. How do you think this one will pan out?
Yeah, look, we have to put the injustice of how we felt in the game behind us. I think we've done that. You know, the players are in good spirits today, and Thursday morning is difficult for everyone because we put so much into the game and ultimately took nothing from it. And I think that was, we deserved a lot more than that. But that's the nature of the game and the nature of how refereeing decisions can go for or against you rather. So, but as I say, 3 days later you get another game, and this game presents us with a good opportunity to get back to winning ways. A team that's, you're right, is fighting for their lives, but a team that's come into this league knowing exactly that's what they would have to do. I think they've enjoyed the experience of being in it. A big step up, and I think the main thing for me is that they've been very competitive, and the games that we've watched, they're not beaten easily. They play with great spirit, good intensity as well, and they're a threat at set pieces, and so we have to make sure that we counteract that, and obviously play our own football and do everything to try and win the game.
You've got no midweek game next week, so will that tend to lead you to not freshen up the team as much, or do you feel that the players gave so much midweek that they might need a rest?
I don't think so. Look, we look at the team, and as I say, like, we've arguably got 5 players that would start in our team that are unavailable to us because of injury at this minute in time. So we just have to be mindful of that. But the most important thing is to pick the right team and the strongest team to win the game. So the players have, good response. They seem fresh, trained, as I say, okay, light the last couple of days. The lads who didn't play have done a little bit more on Thursday. And, I've no doubt we'll be ready to play.
You mentioned the dreaded word injuries, so I'm going to ask you now, how are Stoke looking on the injury front?
Well, we've no additional injuries. Obviously Nick came off in the game. He's feeling his groin a bit, but he'd be fine for tomorrow unless he's a reaction to training today, which I don't think would be the case. But the nature of that injury is it's a little bit fatigue related as the game progresses, and you can see that his mobility is compromised a little bit, and he's in quite a lot of discomfort or pain. And we just had to obviously make that decision at the point we did in the game to protect him, rather than ultimately our preference would have been to keep him on and strengthen our case to win the game. But the other players, Clucas and McLean are still a number of weeks away. Fox a number of weeks away. And Collins and Campbell are both out obviously until the end of next season. So there's nothing imminent changing on the injury front at this minute in time.
Is Danny Bart fit and available for selection after the cut he got?
Yeah, we just got we've got to just monitor that. He hasn't. We didn't. We have him out to head a ball yet because of the area where the cut is. So we just need to assess that tomorrow. So we give it as long as possible. So Danny will do a little bit of a fitness test in terms of, is he compromised heading the ball in any way with the nature of the injury. It was quite a horrific cut, to be honest, and it would have to be something like that to keep Danny and make Danny go off. So we'll give him obviously up until tomorrow, see how he responds to that, and then whether he can be involved or not at that point in time.
Is the cut under his eye, Michael?
No, the cut's on the top of his head actually there. It's more there, it's quite a very, very deep cut, to be honest. He had to go to, it wasn't a cut that he needed to go in A&E at that point in the game to have it seen by specialists rather than just the doctor trying to stitch it up because it was so deep. And it isn't in a particularly good area, but we're looking at what we could possibly, he could maybe be able to wear like a head guard if we felt that was necessary. So we're looking at those types of options as well.
And the playoffs now tend to look beyond the group. Are your current thoughts any more towards playing the youngsters? Everybody sees that there are youngsters on the bench now. Do you feel that the time is right to play them, or are you going to continue with the tried and trusted and look at the players whose contracts may be up for renewal that might want to impress you as well?
Well, I think we've only one player out of contract, so that's there's not many players in that situation, to be honest. The younger players, and you know, we've had younger players on the bench in recent games, and that's been driven by the nature of the injuries that we have at this minute in time. I think realistically, those players are still a little bit away from being starting games for us. The Championship's a tough physical league to blood young players in at that age. You know, most players will have to have a pathway where they go out on loan. First of all, they've had no experience of playing senior football. You know, they've been playing at under 18 or under 23. So it's a massive jump for a young player to make into the Championship. So, you know, look, the most important thing between now and the end of the season is to win as many games as possible. That's our only focus. If we have young players that deserve to play, they'll get the opportunity to play. But I won't, you know, just necessarily pick teams without a purpose, and the purpose will be obviously to try and win the game, and that'll maintain. You know, like people say about younger players, but I think Stoke have played at one point this season their youngest team for 17 years. So I don't think that we can say that we haven't blooded younger players this season.
Given what you've said about the younger players and how the season's panned out, do you feel that you're in a better place now than you were last summer, with players that you might want to bring in to bridge that gap that's been mentioned of the 23 to 28-year-olds, because Stoke have had a much better season?
Well, the biggest obstacle to that is the number of players we have under contract, as opposed to, I suppose, where Stoke is perceived as a club. I think the perception of Stoke as a club is still very high. You know, people look at the size of the club. They look at, as I've talked about, you know, the nature of the fan base, the passion that the club has, the facilities. You know, it's a very strong option for a player in the Championship, and it's a very strong option even for some players dropping down from the Premier League, perhaps as well. But again, you know, we will have a situation in the summer where we will have 12 players returning to the club who are under contract, and whilst we possibly see that their future lies elsewhere, they may not. And until that situation is resolved, we'll obviously have to be a little bit more careful in terms of how we build the squad, and you know, we have restrictions obviously financially because of that as well.
And also, of course, the parachute payments stop this year.
Yeah, again, you know, obviously you have your parachute payments for 3 years in the Championship, so that changes in many ways the financial model of the club to some extent. You know, we have great owners that want to back the club as much as possible, but we have to operate within the rules of the EFL as well. So yeah, there's a number of challenges, but you know, are we stronger than we were? We're certain. Yeah, I think we are stronger. We also have a lot of players moving forward. It will be in the last year of their contract next year, and that'll be probably a period where, you know, we'll have to make decisions on players, and maybe where the greatest transition of the squad will happen in that point, because, you know, we'll have players. It'll be our 4th year in the Championship, and a number of those players are obviously, you know, the club invested in them when they came down from the Championship. We don't have that many players really left from the club's last season in the Premier League. It's predominantly the players that we acquired when we came down into the Championship, and so there's a natural transition on that as well.
And lastly from me, do you wish VAR had been brought into the Championship, and would you like it bringing in the future?
I wish VAR had been brought in 2018, first of all, when we lost a very harsh penalty decision for Northern Ireland, which stopped us going to the World Cup. And I at that time, FIFA didn't use it in the qualifying and the playoff games. It subsequently was used in the Euro 2020 playoffs. So yeah, I think, look, is it realistic to think that VAR could be rolled out in the Championship? I'm not so sure, to be honest. But certainly, you know, the most disappointing thing for me in the terms of the decision that was given the other night was that the referee's assistant clearly didn't give it. He admitted that after the game, and the referee chose to give it. I think that I think it would be hard to argue that the referee had a better view of the incident than the assistant. But as I say, that it's gone now. We've moved on to it. Yeah, we got rid of our anger on Wednesday night and Thursday morning, and we move forward to tomorrow's game now.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hans. George now, please.
Thanks for joining us, Michael. It's small, I suppose, fine lines, isn't it, really? If, buts, whys and maybes in terms of the last 3 games you've played. You've been in all of those games, and it's just those fine lines. You had it the other night where possibly Stephen Fletcher on another day possibly would have scored, and in the other games as well. You've been well in the games, and it's just that fine line, isn't it?
Yeah, I think when you look at this league, that is the nature of it, that there's very little in a lot of the games. You know, they're decided by a one goal either way. That might come as off the result of a set piece. It might come off a piece of really good individual play. You know, we've lost games to, if you look at the last 3 games, you know, two great strikes from the opposition, which is difficult for us to do too much about. And secondly, obviously a bad decision by the referee, and that's the need. We just have to live with that. And you know, the most important thing for me is that, particularly against Brentford and against Swansea, you know, I think we were well matched for the opposition. We didn't feel that we were outplayed in any way, and they're both 2 teams that are going for automatic promotion. So, but unfortunately, maybe too often this season, we've come out on the wrong side of that fine line, and that's something that we have to continue to work at and hopefully, obviously, rectify between now and the end of this season and take that forward into next season.
A lot of plus points, though, for you, Michael, isn't there, really, in all the areas? You must be pleased about that. There's something for you to work with, not only to go to the final games of this season, but certainly what you can build on.
Yeah, look, I think that we have a much more settled team, for example. I think the team has demonstrated that it's capable of playing in, you know, at least a couple of systems, which I think you need. We have personnel to play with the 3, we have personnel to play with the 4. And also, I think we've shown a good bit of resilience because we've probably had quite a high casualty list in terms of injuries and the nature of the injuries. You know, I can't remember. We've had a number of players, for example, that have had to undergo surgery at one point as well. So all of those things have brought a challenge to us. But yeah, there is positives. There's no doubt about that. We have to continue to work on that. We have to continue to refine the squad, make it as competitive as possible, because it is a very competitive league. And, you know, you look at sort of the profile, I suppose, of Swansea, who came down at the same time as Stoke, but, you know, have a much younger base team than we have, really. And that's, and possibly players that have had that good experience. They've had good loan players in. And those are all things that I think have made them that little bit stronger in us this season, and subsequently has put them in the position they're in. And they've probably been a little bit fortunate because they don't have a huge squad that, you know, their key players, the likes of Ayew and Lowe, for example, Grimes, have managed to stay fit. So those are all factors as well. But it gives us an indication of what's needed in this league. And as I say, we just have to continue to progress.
You've used the word competitive, and certainly in respect of Wycombe's position, they will be competitive, Michael, because so long as there's a new number of games left, they will come into that game feeling there might be just a bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
Look, I think you're right that they come up, you know, when you come up into this league and you're a club of Wycombe size, you know, it's going to be difficult. I'm sure, you know, Gareth and his board of directors were realistic about that. But as I said previously, they've been extremely competitive in the majority of their games, albeit they find it difficult to get wins, and they'll keep fighting. I've no doubt that they'll keep fighting. And the other thing is, for the players on an individual basis, they want to show other clubs that they're capable of operating at this level. You know, for a number of their players, that'll be their first year playing in the Championship. So, you know, they will see every game as an opportunity to show the opponents that, you know, that they're a player that, if we're not going to be in this league next season, that I should be considered. And that's the mindset of players. And it, you know, as I say, they've shown that competitive spirit together, and you know, we have to be ready for that tomorrow.
But a chance for you to build a run and move forward again, isn't it, really, after the disappointing last 3 games? Their history. You've got to move it forward now, haven't you?
You got to win the next game. Simple as that. When you lose, you've got to try and win the next game. And you know, we've had this situation where we've had 3 defeats. So without getting ahead of ourselves, our priority when we're in this situation is solely to try and win the next game, and we'll do everything possible to make sure that happens tomorrow.
Thanks for joining us, Michael. All the best tomorrow.
Thank you.
Dave, now you've got anything?
Yeah, just one question. You obviously need a lot of fitness and tenacity in your side, and one player who's certainly coming through in and delivering that in spades is Jacob Brown, who's certainly. I mean, I would argue that his actions pushing the defence probably helps create the goal against Swansea. You must be pleased with the progress that he's made.
Yeah, look, when we brought Jacob to the club, I think at the time he was 21. I think he's 22 at this point in time. He's come and we knew what we were bringing to the club. Athletically, Jacob is a fantastic player. He's got, very rarely do you get a player that can run fast and has good physical strength and is arguably as fast in the 90th minute as he is in the first minute. He's great sustainability in terms of his physical attributes as well. Where he needs to improve on is obviously at times his technical level, his link-up play, his final ball at times. But he does a great shift for the team, at times when we've played him through the middle as the striker, or we've played him wide off the right as well. So we knew when we brought him to the club, we're going to have to work with him, and he's got a brilliant attitude to it. So he's been a real positive. I know at times he knows that he would like to have maybe added more goals himself. But I think, what we have is a young player who's really, really keen to progress and do well. And if I'm honest, we didn't have enough of them in the club. And now, he epitomizes that. And I think, what we also have seen is a number of younger players as well of that sort of age profile who possibly, weren't doing so well at the club progressing as well. But we're delighted with the progress that Jacob's made.
Another player in the similar mould I was just going to mention was Jack Clarke. You brought him on. I always thought of him as playing down the right, but you've also been playing him down the left. Which do you think he's best suited for?
I think he can play either. To be honest, his preference is probably to play off the left, which is kind of what wide players in the modern game want to do. They'd rather come in the pitch and play off their stronger side as playing on the outside of people. If you look at that difference, James McLean's a more traditional winger who likes to go on the outside of people and is not as comfortable when he comes inside and plays. But so a lot of the more, the younger modern wingers like to play what I would say on their opposite side. So it was more of a challenge for me to get Jack to play off the right rather than off the left, to be honest. But he's a very talented player. At times he drifts a little bit in the game and he has to address that. But in terms of how he handles the ball, he's got exceptional talent. And I would delighted with, again, he's only 20 years of age, and this is really, a sustained period of playing in the Championship for him, having, since he went to Tottenham, and he's got to make an impact now in the remaining games of the season.